This podcast is a Radio Mike original production. Head to radiomike.com.au to find out more. Today on the show, Apple's new Vision Pro headset. Is it the future? Is the new Spider-Man movie the best movie ever made? Letterboxd seems to think so. Plus, there's an Australian version of The Office being made, but will it be any good? All that and more on 20th Century Boy, the podcast that's just like a chocolate milkshake, only crunchy. To 20th Century Boy. My name is Mikeles Morales, and this is the inside of my mind. Oh, welcome to the podcast, everyone. Thanks for being back. Of course, every week I choose a different name to start the show week. This week I've gone with Mikeles Morales, which is, of course, a reference to Miles Morales, who is the Spider-Man alter ego in the new Spider-Man movie, which I am talking about on today's podcast. I thought that was a good one. Send in your names. I like to start with different puns of Mike or puns of Radio Mike or any RM themed name. Getting harder each week, so would appreciate if you guys would submit some of your own. Been really busy lately, but things are going to be quieting down now, which is good. And I'm feeling a bit of pressure lifted, which is good. But I got a lot to talk about today. There's a lot of stuff that's been going on, so I kind of want to jump straight into it. I've got a lot of topics, and thank you again to all of our Patreon supporters. We're on 59 Patreon supporters, which is amazing, but we have been on 70 in the past. So if you've left the Patreon or you're keen to jump on, every Friday, of course, you get the Pat and Mike show, which is a bonus podcast between me and producer Pat. So that's great fun. Would love for you to jump on the Patreon at the $4.50 tier. You get access to the Pat and Mike show, or if you just want to give a little bit, if the show means anything to you each week, $1 a month as well can just help support the show. And again, we're an independent podcast, so all of that really goes a long way. Okay, so here's the first thing I want to talk about this week. I saw the brand new Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, sequel to, I think, would have been a while ago, maybe 2019's movie Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Now, a little bit confusing. Spider-Man is a bit confusing as a superhero, and there have been many Spider-Man films over time. Of course, there was the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy with Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3. Then there was the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man series, which was The Amazing Spider-Man, and then The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Then, of course, there is the MCU Spider-Man, which is Tom Holland's Spider-Man, which is Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Far From Home, and then Spider-Man No Way Home. But Spider-Man as a character, because he's such a popular character, Spider-Man, the movie rights pre the Marvel Cinematic Universe were owned by Sony, and they made the Tobey Maguire and the Andrew Garfield ones. And then obviously when the MCU was becoming so big, Marvel wanted to include Spider-Man in their movie, so they struck a deal with Sony that they could use Spider-Man, and that's why Spider-Man is now a big part of the MCU, and Tom Holland's Spider-Man is great. But I think Sony must still have some rights to make movies from the character. I don't think they can do live action, but they can do animated movies, and the Spider-Verse movies are animated movies unrelated to the MCU. And they feature Miles Morales, not Peter Parker. All of those live-action Spider-Men, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland, they're all playing Peter Parker, who is Spider-Man. But then in the comics, they made a character called Miles Morales, who is African-American and Hispanic, and he is another kid who becomes Spider-Man. Because in comic books, like, they reset the continuity all the time. They change all the stories all the time. They just keep rewriting them. When a new writer comes over, they just reset it, start again from scratch. So there's all these different stories. And Miles Morales is, one, I think a really good cool superhero, really unique and different to Peter Parker. But what they managed to achieve with that first Spider-Verse movie, which again is an animated movie, was incredible, artistically, visually, narratively, like really great. And the premise is, in this one, you know, there's Spider-Man, there's all these multiple universes, and in each universe there's a different Spider-Man or spider superhero. And in the first Spider-Verse movie, there's Miles Morales and Peter Parker, and then there's Penny Parker, who's like out of a Japanese anime universe. So she actually has a robot spider. That's her thing. Then there's Peter Porker, who is like a Looney Tunes Porky Pig. He's from like a Looney Tunes universe, like a Porky Pig style character who is like really cartoony, cell shaded. So there's all these different art styles. Then there's Spider-Man Noir, who's like a black and white Spider-Man from a film noir universe. And then there's Spider-Gwen or Spider-Woman, who's Gwen Stacy in a different universe where instead of Peter Parker getting bitten by the spider, it was Gwen Stacy, and she becomes Spider-Woman. So there's all these different spider people. And then across the Spider-Verse, the new one, they introduce even more spider people. So there's Spider Guy, who I think it's Spider Guy. He's an Indian Spider-Man who has a yo-yo webs, which is really cool. Then they also have Spider Punk, who's like a British punk Spider-Man who uses a guitar to fight. Who else did they have? They have a few more. There's like another Spider-Woman. There's all these different spider people. There's a Spider Tyrannosaurus Rex. It's awesome. It's a great movie. And the thing that really caught my eye about it, and even if you're not into superhero movies, if you're into like cinema, genuinely think you should watch it, because it is now currently the highest rated film on Letterboxd. Letterboxd, of course, you can follow me on it. A lot of people who listen to this show use it. Letterboxd is a website where you just track your film watching and rate it. And basically on Letterboxd, you know, it's a very like, I just use it to rank films I watch, but like it's very like filmic people, film aficionados, kind of, you know, those snobby film people, which I'm not one of. So anything over 4 on Letterboxd basically means really good. Like not many movies get over 4, and currently Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is rated 4.7, and that's the highest score of any film on the site. And of course it's like standardized. Like if you only have like, I don't know, like if it's a really small movie that like no one's seen, like here it says films should have a minimum of 5,000 ratings to be eligible to enter the list. So it can't be like some random small movie that everyone rates, like 50 people rate 5 stars. So it's all standardized and makes sense. But yeah, it is a phenomenal movie. Like I loved it. I thought it was so engaging, so interesting. The art style is so, like, you have to see it. It is such an intriguing art style. But like looking at Letterboxd, like these are the top movies, I'll read the top 10 movies on Letterboxd, and I've only seen 3 of them. So 1 is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. 2 is a movie called Come and See, which I believe is a German war film. I've never seen it, ironically, because it's called Come and See. And that's got 4.6. 3 is Parasite, Bong Joon-ho, 2019. Fantastic movie. One of my favorites. Absolutely love that, and you should watch that. But that's 4.6. 4 is a movie called A Dog's Will, which looks like a foreign film, and it's got a 4.6 as well. 5 is Harakiri, a Japanese film from the 60s, which is, you know, commonly regarded as a very good film. Then you've got The Godfather Part 2, 4.5. The Godfather Part 1, 4.5. Then you've got The Human Condition 3, A Soldier's Prayer, directed by Masaki Kobayashi. That's 4.5. And then you've got at number 9, 12 Angry Men, which I've talked about on this podcast. Amazing movie. That's on 4.5. And then 7 Samurai, which is a 3.5 hour long movie from 1950s, a Kurosawa film. I would really like to watch that one day. Like, It's meant to be incredible, and Japanese filmmakers are always really good. 11 is The Shawshank Redemption, and then 12, funnily enough, another animated movie, which is Spirited Away, which is an amazing movie as well, a Miyazaki Studio Ghibli movie. The next one that I've seen is 16, which is The Dark Knight, Batman The Dark Knight. 17 is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And then, yeah, it's just pretty fascinating. Well, of the top 40, I've seen Across the Spider-Verse, Parasite, 12 Angry Men, Spirited Away, Dark Knight, Into the Spider-Verse, Ikiru, which is another Kurosawa movie that's quite heartwarming, not as good as I thought it was going to be. Everything Everywhere All at Once is there. Star Wars Empire Strikes Back is number 31. Grave of the Fireflies, another Ghibli movie, which is an amazing movie. And then, yeah, those are the ones I've seen in the top 40. And in the top 50, I've seen Howl's Moving Castle, which I actually don't think is very good. But just fascinating that, I mean, it could be recency effect. Like, this movie just came out, so everyone's really thinking about it and rating it really highly. I'd be interested to see if it stays in that spot, like, over the next few years. But, man, it was a good movie. I absolutely loved it, and I think everyone should watch it. Go and see it. Go and see it this week. And I haven't had time to see many movies, but I made time for this one. I still haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which I had to send producer Pat to the premiere of, but yeah. Let's do a quick one of these.
All the write-ins that you sent in.
One of our Patreon supporters, Patreon Kyle, who is an executive producer of the show at the $20 a month tier. Thank you so much, mate. Hey, mate, hope you're good. Just caught up on the last few podcasts. Wanted to share some thoughts. The new music is awesome. Thank you. Of course, our new theme music. As much as I really like the T-Rex intro, this new one slaps. That alongside the new intro summary you've been doing just hypes people up. Yeah, that was an interesting choice because, like, I when I changed the music, I started doing this thing at the top of the show, which was like, today on the show, talking about this, this, and this, which is kind of the podcast progressing into sort of a more like my thoughts on the week's news or week's topics of news and et cetera. And I just wanted to do some, forward hooking on the show, just so people can hear the main topics we're going to talk about on the show, keep retention going, just to keep growing the audience and sound a bit more professional, even though the idea of this pod isn't to be professional. But I just thought that would be a cool thing to do. Re the ep on Mikey. Thought I'd share my thoughts as a traveller in Melbourne. Yeah, because Patreon Kyle was from Ireland, but he moved to Melbourne at the start of the year. I met him at the Weird Al Yankovic concert, actually. Completely agree that it's completely missing a trick and the lack of contactless card payment and the need for a physical card, especially for tourists who might not necessarily be aware that you need a Mikey card and are perhaps more likely to get caught by public transport staff. However, and another reason why Android phones are the superior phones, you can add your Mikey card to your Google Wallet, meaning Android users can just tap on with their phones, making it so much easier. Hopefully they keep this feature for Mikey 2.0. Just going to ignore that because everybody in the world knows that Android phones are not the superior phones. They are, in fact, the non-superior phones. Also got a write-in or a voice-in from Radio Bendrix, the composer of the new theme music, because last week on the show, I think I was talking about, what was I? I was talking about iPhone or something like that. What was I talking about? When iPhones first came out and when I first got an iPhone, and Ben actually sent in a voicemail about an experience at school, because, you know, that's the thing about my generation, to all the Gen Zers listening, like millennials, like, we didn't grow up with iPhones. Like, iPhone was a new thing and it was so incredible at the time. Here's Ben's memories of having an iPhone, and send in a voicemail anytime, of course. Just attach it to an email, put it in my voice DMs on Insta, or call the hotline, 1-800-438-353. Ben said this.
Mate, the story about Jake Clemens he was talking about with the first iPhone, very similar story, that Damo Griffiths had one of the first ones, and Indica Pereira had never seen one. had never touched one, like had never held an iPhone in his life, and asked on the train home if he could touch it, like not use it, not look at it or anything. He just wanted to touch it, like he wanted to legit stroke it, and and me and Damon just thought it was funny to not let him. We were friends with Indica. It wasn't like bullying or anything. It was just like, it's just so weird that that's what he wants to do. So we're like, nah, okay, nah. Just you can't touch it. You can look at it. If you want to use it, you want to make a call, but like you can't stroke it. You can't touch it. And he was like sad. He was like, oh, but I just want to touch it. Can I just touch it? And that's the story. Still laugh about it now. Damo. Yeah, it reminded me. Have a good one.
That's how like crazy it was for someone to have an iPhone at that time. Like especially for poorer families. You're like, wow, an iPhone. Wow, what is this Snapchat? What is all this stuff? What is Instagram? I remember those feelings. Absolutely crazy. I also love how Ben's like, yeah, we weren't bullying him or anything, but yeah. Huge news story that's actually been floating around for a while, but it's gotten a bit more traction recently, so I wanted to talk about it. There is an Australian version of The Office being made.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Okay, this has been talked about for a while, and I think this is a really, really bad idea. It's not going to work, and it's not going to resonate with audiences at all. I guess looking at it from the perspective of like what it is, who's in it, etc. It's been floated for a while, and from what I can gather from various sort of industry insiders that I know who I would trust, is like, of course, when The Office was getting big in the USA with the USA Michael Scott, Steve Carell version, which Australians loved, by the way. And I only first watched The Office last year. If you've listened to the podcast for a while, you would know that. And I loved it. I thought it was amazing. But when that was big, there was discussion like 15 years ago or so in Australia of making an Office Australia, because it's been localized in so many different markets. Of course, it started in the UK with Ricky Gervais, and we know the US version the most, but there are so many versions, all of which follow sort of the same character structure, but they're just very localized. You know, there's an Office India, there's an Office France. They've done it in all these different countries. And from what I understand, 15, 16 years ago, it was being discussed, and the front runner to play the lead character, which I guess is the David Brent or Michael Scott, was going to be Glenn Robbins. Now, if you're not from Australia, you might not know Glenn Robbins, but Australians probably do. Very popular comedic actor, has played Russell Coight, was in Kath and Kim, one of our biggest sort of exports, and just a really well-regarded actor, comedian. And honestly, when I heard that from some of the insiders who told me, I actually was like, wow, that would have been good. I feel like Glenn Robbins could be great at giving that kind of Australian spin on that character. Like, especially if you look at a character like Russell Coight, who was like all Aussie Adventures. It was like a parody of like, I guess, not necessarily a Steve Irwin, but like an outback adventurer. And he was just really stupid and dim-witted. I feel like there's a skeleton there for an Australian Michael Scott style character. And for whatever reason, I heard that, it never eventuated with Glenn Robbins. Then for a while, they were talking about it again a few years ago, and for a while I heard that it was Jim Jeffries that was being approached to play the lead character, the Michael Scott or David Brent localized version. Jim Jeffries, of course, a pretty big Australian export, not very well known in Australia, but just really big in American comedy, like really well known in American comedy. And Jim Jeffries might have been okay, but again, didn't eventuate. They then started talking about it again, and it went to Magda Sabansky, which would have been interesting because it would have been a female lead for the first time. And Magda, of course, very well regarded as well, played Sharon Strzelecki on Kath and Kim, another sort of bumbling character and just a really well-regarded comedic actor in Australia. But then from what I heard, just didn't resonate with the script and didn't want to do it, so was off the project. From what I understand now, it's going to be led by Felicity Ward. Again, very successful Australian comedian. Don't think she has the name power of Glenn Robbins, Jim Jeffrey, or Magda, but don't think she's definitely capable of creating that character and bringing it to life. Very interesting they're going with a female lead. I'm not sure why they've decided to go with that. And the only other person I know that is involved is Steen Raskopoulos, who I think is playing the Jim character. So there's a bit of insight for you. But why don't I think it's going to work? Here's a few reasons. Oh, and before I get into that though, let's be real. If it was 10 years ago, I do think Hamish Blake would have been a really good pick for the lead. I don't think he would ever do it now. I mean, he won't. Why would he, is my thinking. But I think he could have been a great lead for that show. He's just got the exact kind of mannerisms and style that would lean into an Australian version of that lead character. Why won't it work? I think it's too late. I genuinely just think it's too late to do this show. Why now? Why are we doing an Australian version of The Office in 2023 when it finished 15 years ago? All the other localizations did it when The Office was really hot and talked about. That's the first thing. Feels like too late, too little, too late. The other thing is The Office exists. I don't think... I get why an Indian office would be made. I get why a French office would be made. I get why, any country that doesn't speak English would make an office. But I just feel I know, we are so used to in Australia seeing American sitcoms and we do relate to them a lot, right? And so I don't think we need our own version of The Office when Australians love the US Office so much. We love Steve Carell's Michael Scott. And there's already that love there that, I guess in France, making The Office France, it's people in France who speak French, just French, probably wouldn't, not all of them, or not many of them would have seen The Office. So they localize that idea and make it as best as they can in France. But in Australia, it just doesn't feel like it's going to convert in the way that they want it to. That coupled with the timing, plus just the fact that it's been done. We also in Australia have a show called Utopia, which for a long time has been considered the Australian Office, I guess. It's set in an office. It's a bit more about bureaucracy and stuff like that. But, looking at something like The Office or Parks and Recreation, Utopia really feels like it fills that gap, and it has Aussie actors. It's by Working Dog. It's got Rob Sitch. It's got Limo. It's got Dill Rook. It's got lots of Australian people, and I just don't know why The Office would work. We've also had a show called Fisk with Kitty Flanagan and Marty Sheargold, which was another really good office-based comedy. I think I think people will watch it, but I think the only reason people will watch it is to see what it's like, and then instantly the feedback is going to be, it's nowhere near as good as the original Office. Really surprised they're doing it. Don't know who thinks it's a good idea. I think it's going to Amazon, but keen to see how it develops. Before we get into talking about the new Apple product, I just wanted to talk one thing that I saw on Twitter that made me laugh a fair bit, which was an interview with Noel Gallagher. If you're not familiar, Noel Gallagher was a member of Oasis, one of the main members of Oasis. The other main member of Oasis was Noel Gallagher's brother, Liam Gallagher. And of course, Oasis broke up in 2008 after a brief stint being one of the biggest rock bands in the world. Of course, you would know this. Would love to chat more about Oasis and their music because I've heard all their albums and I actually think they're fantastic. And another band that has two singers, like Noel and Liam. Liam is the main singer, who you heard there on Wonderwall, but Noel Gallagher sings, who I believe was the better songwriter of the two of them. Noel sings a lot of some of the songs as well, including one of my favourite Oasis songs, Don't Look Back in Anger. Of course, I think Noel has a new album out, which is why he's currently doing some, interviews across a bunch of music outlets and stuff. And, every single time, either Noel or Liam Gallagher, because basically the story goes, as brothers, they're both very, sort of chavvy British guys, very arrogant, very, turn your nose up at everything. And I found over time Noel seems to have become a bit more modest than Liam, but basically they would clash a lot on stage publicly as brothers, had very public feuds and beat ups and fights between them, which got to the point where I think during a concert in 2008, 2009, they just broke up on stage, and that was the end of Oasis. Liam then went to start a band called Beady Eye, which did 2 albums, and now he has a solo career. Noel started his own solo band called Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds. Some really good albums there that I've really enjoyed. So yeah, there's been a bitterness and a feud between both of them for a very long time. And it's really been funny watching it over the years, because I think every time either of them puts out new albums, inevitably one of the interviewers in this publicity cycle will ask them, is Oasis going to get back together? And there's been rumours for a very long time. I think Liam or Noel performed at the London 2012 Olympics, and various other times where Liam's we're going to do an Oasis reunion, but they don't talk and they're not in contact. And I find it really funny because it just feels like this brotherly feud is preventing the band from getting back together when they genuinely could make so much money for just agreeing to do a reunion tour. In an interview, here's what Noel said, which was somewhat threatening, and also I just found it really funny, the way he speaks.
He's going to have to call me. He's going to have to get somebody to call me, because he's been going on about it for the last 10 or whatever it is. I dare him. He'd be watching this now. Is this going on your website? I fucking dare you to call me. And you won't call me, because if you do call me and I go, actually, that's a good idea, actually, that might work, then the arse falls out of his trousers, because then you've got to be in the same room as me, and then we both know how that ends up. So you call me. Stop tweeting. You're bigger than that. You're better than that.
I just love, what I find funny about it is basically Noel Gallagher is confirming that Oasis won't do a reunion because Liam Gallagher, his brother, because his brother won't call him. And essentially he's accusing his brother of saying oh yeah, we're doing it. But then knowing that if Noel's okay, I'll do it, Liam won't want to do it. It's just such a pinnacle of immaturity and just childish nonsense that you can only get away with your brother. I feel like as someone who has a brother, there is a marked difference, and anyone with a brother of a similar age, let me know if you agree. There's just a bit of a difference fighting with your brother than there is with anyone else. It's more, it's like when the Prince Harry and William stuff came out, where Prince Harry said that Prince William pushed him. And it's yeah, but brother, that's your brother. He's your big brother. Similar age siblings always do shit like that. And it's just different to if it was two unrelated people, I think. But yeah, I just find it so interesting the way he's I dare you. I dare you to call me. I know you won't call me, but I dare you to call me. Come on, call me. He's just egging him on to call him. I would love to see Oasis live. I genuinely think their music is so good. They've got so many incredible tracks, just such a great rock band and such amazing personalities. But you wouldn't want to go with there being all this tension on stage between Liam and Noel. And, the funny thing is Noel wrote Wonderwall, but he gave it to Liam to sing. And ironically, that became their most popular song and famous song of all time. Noel wrote it. And I just think there was a lot of tension over that, like Noel being the driving force behind the writing of a lot of the songs. And yeah, just a lot of tension and a lot of just brotherly feuding that led to the demise of that band. Yeah, it is so funny to watch. Okay, Apple's keynote happened, and man, oh man, I've talked a lot this year about how much we're stepping into the future and how quickly it's happening. But with the new Vision Pro, I find this really interesting. Take a listen.
Vision Pro is a new kind of computer that augments reality by seamlessly blending the real world with the digital world. It's the first Apple product you look through and not at. Vision Pro feels familiar, yet it's entirely new. You can see, hear, and interact with digital content just like it's in your physical space. And you control Vision Pro using the most natural and intuitive tools, your eyes, hands, and voice. With Vision Pro, you're no longer limited by a display. Your surroundings become an infinite canvas. Use your apps anywhere and make them any size you want. Capture photos and videos and relive your most important memories in an entirely new way. Watch your movies, shows, and sports, and immerse yourself in games on a giant screen surrounded by spatial audio. And connect with people as if you're sharing the same space. These are just some of the ways that Vision Pro blends digital content into the space around us.
Okay, very, very cool. We'll talk about it. Don't know too much about any of the technology, but want to talk about it and the implications it's going to have in our society. But first of all, Apple Vision Pro cost $3,500. That's US dollars. Here in Australia, probably like $5,000 for this thing. And while I think this is awesome, there's a few concerns I have with it. While I think it's awesome and it looks sick, who can afford that? Like, who is this actually for? Because who out there, like, I'm working in my late 20s, like I make money, but I wouldn't buy this. I do not have enough money to spend $3,500 or $5,000 Australian in one shot on one of these things when it's also just like in its earliest stages, right? Who is this for? This is just going to be rich people, rich billionaires, millionaires buying a couple of these, you know, one for their partner, one for their kids. Everyone's going to have, all the rich people are going to have one, and us poor people are just going to be slumming it on our iPhones while all the rich people are just like looking around going, ooh, woo, 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 waving their hands in the air, doing all their apps that we can't see. It's crazy. I don't understand who could possibly afford this. Like, regular people can't afford this. The same way, like, regular people can afford an iPhone. You can spend $1,000 on an iPhone and like use that every day. This kind of thing, like, and I think I've spoken on this podcast before. I've always been incorrectly skeptical about Apple products. Like, again, not to show my age, but I remember when the App Store launched and there were ads on TV being like, the App Store, get all your apps. And I remember thinking, there is no way anyone is ever going to say apps. Apps is the lamest word of all time. No one is going to say apps. Of course, we all say apps now. I remember when AirPods came out and I was like, these look so stupid. No one is ever going to wear them. Of course, I love my AirPods. I remember when they got rid of headphone jacks on phone. I was like, who is going to buy an iPhone? No one will ever want to use wireless headphones. You'd lose them again. AirPods taking over. Like, I'm wrong about everything Apple. But I do want to say, with Apple Vision Pro, I do wonder if people can see themselves wearing them in their day-to-day life. Like, can you see yourself wearing this, like, essentially robot goggles across your day-to-day life? Feels very interesting to see if it will take off in the mainstream. Like, imagine everyone wearing these at work all the time, and think how much easier it would be to like be distracted in a meeting or something at work if you're wearing one. Just open up a tab, a game in the corner of your eye, play a bit of solitaire while you're in this meeting, you know, just solitaire with your eyes. Open a YouTube video, have it running while you're in a meeting, all because you've got these goggles on. But what it allows us to do, it is very cool. The fact that it's basically a replacement for a TV, replacement for your phone, like you can basically put a TV up in augmented reality, watch HD movies, be on a plane, change the plane into like a virtual space that you can pretend you're in, watch a movie, the spatial audio going straight into your ears. What does it mean for us? Like, we are going very, very fast here. Very cool. I'm sure within like, I wouldn't get the first one, but if they can make it cheaper and sort of make it, once it's sort of developed a fair bit more, I think it would be something that I would want to get and start experimenting with, because I think it would be cool, but it's just like, I don't think as a headset, like as a big goggle headset, it works. I think it has to be more like glasses or something smaller and less noticeable, because imagine if in 10 years everyone's walking around with one of these AR headsets on. It'll just be crazy. It'll be really weird. But it is interesting to see Apple always taking those really innovative steps in the right direction to advance technology and society. Like, this is the next era of computing, of communication, and it's just amazing. Like, this is the mainstreamification of AI and VR. Like, they even showed like you can go, like, I think they even showed that you can go to like VR sports and concerts and stuff. It will be amazing. I find it really fascinating if they can get it right. And I don't think it would be right at first. Like, I would never pick one up, but also just the price point. Like, will it be a thing where like average people don't have them, just rich people have them? At first, it definitely will. And yeah, fashion wise, like, I don't know, like, do you go out for dinner and everyone's wearing them? Like, is there etiquette around that? Because at the moment, I guess like you go out to dinner, you might have your phone in your pocket, you'll just take it out, have a bit of a scroll. You might, I don't know, you might go on a date, you might take your phone out, have a bit of a scroll. You might be at work in a meeting, have a bit of a scroll. Is it just something we're going to be wearing all the time? Also, like, the way it's basically recording all your memories, that was an episode of Black Mirror. Like, you can just kind of it's just basically recording everything. Obviously, the implications for porn is really interesting as well. Like, you know, that will boom. There will be so much porn. Like, it's very interesting to see how this goes. Would love to hear people's thoughts on this. Like, would you buy one? I want to talk more about it, but I have a few more things that I want to get to, and I'm already going a bit over time here. So I did want to talk. I did see something else interesting on the news last night, which made me think of something else I've been wanting to talk about. So I do want to skip a bit to that. But I saw this on the news. I know this isn't a new thing, but I did find it very interesting for a number of reasons. So I wanted to talk about this.
50 people have signed up to be the very first Australians hoping to take a trip to the future. A facility in a rural New South Wales town is the first in the Southern Hemisphere to freeze humans in the hope that future technology will bring them back to life. It's now in operation 7 years after it received council approval.
Okay, so there is now, I guess, an active cryogenics lab in Australia and a business that is offering cryogenic services. So if you're thinking a bit of Futurama, you're correct. This is what happens in Futurama, you know, and I guess that means this concept has been around for a long time of freezing yourself sort of either before you die or just after you die, freezing yourself long term in the hope of being awoken in the future when technology is advanced far enough that they can revive people from the dead. Happens in Futurama. Fry wakes up in the year 3000, of course, and a few things I find really interesting about this, because I did a bit of research on where this is happening around the world and how it happens and stuff, and there's a lot of implications with it. First of all, I looked up this Australian company, Southern Cryogenics or whatever, who's led by, I don't even want to say this guy's name, but I couldn't find any information on this dude who's like the CEO or, you know, manager of Southern Cryogenics. Some old dude. And, well, this is him speaking.
No guarantees here, but there is some chance. I'm an optimist, and I want to see how things turn out.
Okay, so he's, you know, it does feel like a lot of cryogenics are just rich people who are really scared of dying and have a lot of money, so will basically do anything to prevent their death. It is a bit Voldemort-y, you know? Like, freezing yourself cryogenically is basically like making a Horcrux in Harry Potter, right? And everyone that's signing up is just an old person who's like, I guess, nearer to death than the rest of us if things go well for us. And they're like, oh, fuck, I don't want to die. Like, I've got heaps of money. I'm going to literally invest all my money into this. But basically it costs you, I think it's $150,000 down payment to get into one of the chambers. And at the moment, there's only 40 cryogenic chambers that you can go into in this Australian one. There's some in the US as well. And the other thing is it's $350 a year. So say you do what Fry and Futurama did and you're frozen for 1,000 years. That's another $350,000. So it's expensive, which makes sense. Like, it's got to be expensive, I guess. It's got to cost a lot to run all this stuff. And the weird part about it is, like, they outline everything. They're like, you know, the best case scenario is that they have like an emergency line. So basically, if you die, they send people out to come and rescue you, get your body and freeze you as soon as possible. Because the idea is the sooner you're frozen post-death, the more chance there is of revival. And then they basically say, you know, if you die in an accident, say a car crash or something in which your body and brain are damaged, you basically have no chance, right? Like an impact death ruins your chance really of being recovered, but like a natural, you know, death on your deathbed kind of death is the best case scenario. But if you die unexpectedly of like a heart attack or something, they have an emergency line that you call and they try as quickly as possible to come and get your body. And that's what you're paying for in like your yearly fees. I find it, part of me thinks it's sort of a scam because there must be so much ongoing cost of running these cryogenics chambers. There's so much risk involved. Like, first of all, is just the risk that we're never going to get to the point where we can do it. The next one is like, how does this business stay operational for hundreds or thousands of years? I guess from the money that they're bringing in from all the hypothetical people who want to be frozen. And of course, there's the rumors that Walt Disney was frozen at one point as well. But what if the facility just gets damaged? I don't know. What if there's like a natural disaster? There's a tornado, there's an earthquake, the facility gets damaged, all the chambers just break and everyone's bodies get crushed or something like that. What if the power goes out? Like, all these variables, like, and you just like, who is this random guy who's running it, who's some old dude? Again, like, I could not find any information of him having like a scientific background or being a doctor or anything like that. And I think they're just playing on people's fear of death and being like, yeah, like, it just doesn't, like, it just feels like rich people having lots of money and not knowing how to spend it. And it freaks me out a bit that people are doing it instead of just accepting the inevitability of our death. But yeah, it's really, really fascinating. And of course, again, there's no guarantee. So you sink all your money into it. You know, you might like, and people are just like doing it. I just find it crazy. Would you do it? Would you cryogenically freeze yourself if it was affordable? Because apparently lots of people are doing it through life insurance and stuff, but find it so fascinating. And it got me thinking of like, I realized recently, just through a lot of stuff that's happening, Futurama, which is one of my favorite shows, which is a comedy kind of satire of science fiction and the future. But what I've realized recently is genuinely how on point a lot of their sort of visions of the future were. Things that like we're really grappling with now, Futurama was predicting kind of in the late 90s, early 2000s. There's a lot of things like, of course, cryogenics is one of them. Like the ethics of it all, but also it just happens. And then a few other things I kind of noted down. In episode 1 of Futurama, they have suicide booths, which is interesting because like one of the biggest sort of hot topic kind kind of social issues of our time is euthanasia. Should people be able to take their own life if they don't want to live? Futurama was always kind of talking about that. There is transgender people competing in elite sports. In one of the episodes, Bender, the robot, can't win in the male category. So he transforms into a fembot, a female robot, and competes there and wins. And again, that's something that is really hot topic today. Like, should trans women be able to compete in elite sports with other biological women, I suppose? That's a big hot button issue at the moment. Futurama was already calling that in like the early 2000s, 20 years earlier. Of course, robots taking over our jobs. One of the other things I saw on the Cryogenics website, the American one, was that you can do a full body preservation or just a head preservation. So you can just freeze your head, right? I guess because, you know, just keep your brain alive. That's all you really need. But of course, in Futurama, there are lots of heads in jars. That's how they got a lot of celebrity cameos on the show, because they were just preserved heads. Crazy. Interactive movies they had in Futurama. And of course, in recent years, we've seen a lot of interactive, like choose your own adventure stuff, like Bandersnatch, the Black Mirror one, and like various other things in which you can choose what happens in a story. And of course, cinematic style video games. And the other one, which I've talked about before, is Fry dates a celebrity, Lucy Liu, as a robot. He downloads Lucy Liu's consciousness illegally into a robot and dates her. We're already in this era of like AI porn, AI kind of generated celebrity porn, which is very unethical, and all the stuff around that. And even what I just said with the Apple Vision Pro, what that ignites. And another one that I thought was really funny, which is when Fry has a dream, and in his dream, he gets an ad. So in the future, companies advertise in people's dreams. And this is a great quote from the show. And I think the idea was to show the pervasiveness of advertising and how advertising is just everywhere, which is, again, such a reality of our current time.
Didn't you have ads in the 20th century?
Well, sure, but not in our dreams. Only on TV and radio, and in magazines, and movies, and at ball games, and on buses, and milk cartons, and T-shirts, and bananas, and written on the sky. But not in dreams. No siree.
It is really fascinating to hear, like, yeah, just hear it said like that, how pervasive advertising is. Every inch of everything is trying to be sold for advertising these days. And like, yeah, I just think Futurama as a series, if you've got any other examples, if you've watched the show, send them in. But I think as a series, it's just so good at, you know, it was so good and so ahead of its time at satirizing what is currently going on in culture. Lots of topics today. Let's finish up with this.
The plug.
As always, Harry Potter and the Boys is back. Me and Sammy recording every week, having a lot of fun. The Pat and Mike show over on Patreon, patreon.com/Radio Mike, $4.50 or above. Bonus podcast every week. It's about 40 minutes long and it's a lot of fun. Pat's doing great on that. From there, we Two Guys, One Cup every week. You can hear me doing a segment called Mic Check, where I talk about my bigger year of footy. And Hamish and Andy I'll pop up on in the next few weeks, I'm sure. Look, that's pretty much it for now. Of course, I would love you to subscribe to the YouTube channel where I put clips up from the podcast, and the TikTok radio.mike, Instagram radio.mike, or at TCBpod. And my Twitter at It's Radio Mike, would love you to follow. That's pretty much it. Send an email anytime. Would love to hear from you. RadioMikePod@gmail.com. Let me know what you're thinking and what's on your mind. But from there, I gotta go. I'll see you next week. My name's been Radio Mike. This has been The Inside of My Mind. Catch you later. This podcast was a Radio Mike original production. Head to radiomike.com.au to check out all our other content, stay up to date at radio.mike on Instagram, and get in touch, radiomikepod@gmail.com.